All right, this is our review for graphing linear equations for our test that we're going to have on this. And these are the kind of questions that you are likely to see. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna zoom in some and hopefully that's fine. Okay, the first question here is supposed to be easy. Graph and label these points. Since we've graphed lines since we learned about this, hopefully you're a pro at graphing points. Just remember that it is x comma y. And so when I graph 3 comma 5 for point A, I go left and right first and up and down second. So the 3 is positive and telling me to go right 3, which is here. Then I am going to go up 5 for the positive 5. I guess that really the issue is that slope is backwards, and so it may be confusing to switch back and forth between this is how I graph the point 3 comma 5 and this is how I graph a slope of 3/5. So we've got to separate that in our heads, that 3 comma 5 is saying go right 3 and go up 5. But a slope is a different thing entirely. So that's A. When it says graph and label, it wants you to say which point is which. So make sure you put A next to that point. B is -6 comma -2. So I'm going to go left 6 and down 2. And that's where point B is. C is 0 comma 8. So I'm going to not go left or right because it's 0, and then I'm going to go up 8 to right here, and so that's point C. Then D, 4 comma -1, I'm going to go right 4 and down 1. There's D. So that's how you would plot and label some points. Now let's do kind of the opposite. We're given points and we're being asked to go ahead and name them with their ordered pairs. So again, x is first, y is second. We want to, for each of these, count how much we're going left or right, and then count how much we're going up or down. Remember that left is negative and down is negative. So for E, that's this point right here. And so we have to go left to -3 and up to +3. So that is the point -3 comma 3. Then let's look at F. So this is left -2, but not up or down. So that would be -2 comma 0. G right down here is left 1 and down 4. So that's -1 comma -4. And then H, which is right here, we're going to go right 2 and up 1. So 2 comma 1. And that's how we name our points with ordered pairs. Let's see here. Now let's talk about some slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. If we're given a graph, we can count to find the slope. So we just pick 2 of these points, and really we actually pick one of them and then figure out how much it takes to rise and run to get to another point. I've tried to be helpful here and mark points that would be good to use. There are other points we could possibly use. We just want to make sure that we're using points that actually meet in the crosshairs of our grid marks. So trying to pick like this point right here, it would be some sort of decimal or fraction, so that's not a great idea. But I've marked points that really are points. So I could start here, and I could say to get to this next point at 0, 0, I need to go down 4, so that's a -4. And then I need to run to the right 3, and that's to the right, so it's positive. So my slope here would be -4/3. And you could write it like this, But even better is to put the negative in front of the entire fraction to show that we understand that a negative divided by a positive is overall a negative. If you did this using other points or going a different direction, you should still end up with the same thing, because this is, if I start at this point, I would count up 4 and left 3, which is 4 over negative 3, which is still negative 4/3. So the most important thing I would say here is remembering that the difference between points and slope is rise over run. So it's the up and down and then the left and right. Let's find the slope of the line that goes through the points. -2, 3 and 4, -7. We are going to either graph these so that we can count the slope. That's totally something you can do. Or we might go ahead and use the formula, which is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now that formula may, not be something that you have memorized or want to have memorized. Essentially what we need to do is subtract the y values, subtract the x values, and then make that into a fraction with the y's on top. So I don't know if that helps. If I go ahead and plug this into the formula by labeling these x1, y1, x2, y2, because you're labeling the first x and y and the second x and y, then I would fill this in by saying -7 minus 3 over 4 minus -2. And what does minusing a -2 mean? It means that we're really going to add. So you either can change this to addition by going and making it plus plus, or if you realize it as you're writing, you can just write 4 plus 2 instead of writing 4 minus -2. Up to you. Up to you. -7 minus 3, I'm making -7 more negative, so that's -10. 4 plus 2 is 6. We do simplify our fractions because we're big kids now. Not even really kids, actually. We're like young adults. Man. So overall, this would be negative, and I can divide them both by 2. So that'd be -5/3. The rest of this appears to be graphing lines, which is fun. Unless you don't like it, and then that's not fun. Let's give this a try. Y equals 2x. So I would need to know, hey, the y-intercept for this is a 0 because there's not one. And the slope for this is 2, but since we want to have a rise over a run for slope, we'd put it over 1 because 2 over 1 is the same as 2. So from 0, I'm going to go up 2 and right 1. And I can do that as many times as I want. It would be nice if you did it if you had at least 3 points. I will take just 2. And the thing I'm looking for when I'm grading lines is I'm looking for your points that you mark. I'm looking for, did you put the y-intercept in the right spot, and did you put the next point at the right spot, so that then if your line veers a little bit later, it's fine. So just try to make it to where I can see those points, if you please. Number 6, our slope for this one would be 1 over 1 because we have 1x, and so our fraction for that would be 1 over 1. We're going to start at -1 for our y-intercept because of this number right here. And then we're going to go up 1, right 1. And just make a few of them and then draw your line. Yeah, that's a pretty cool looking line, if I do say so myself. Now these next two are special because we've got x equals 4, which means put a dot on 4 on the x-axis. Don't draw left and right on the x-axis, draw up and down, because we are talking about all of the points on this graph where there would be an x value of 4. And since the first part of our point, wait, I don't think that's what I want to say. So because the line is on 4 for x, that means that every single point on this line would be 4 comma something. That's what we're saying here. For 8, where y equals 2, we're going to do it kind of the opposite way. Like we're going to put a dot at 2, then we're going to draw a horizontal line, like so. Like that. It's not my best horizontal line ever, but hopefully you get the gist. Super duper important to make sure that you can this is one of those times where maybe you just intuitively have developed a way to understand how to do these two, and if that's not happening for you, you need to work to memorize this. That will actually make things easier if you just commit to memorizing. When I see x equals a number, it is a vertical line through that number. When I see y equals a number, it is a horizontal line through that number, because this is not going to, go away. We're going to do more of this in the next set of stuff, and then later on too. It's not going to go away. Just trust me on that. It'll go away eventually, but not anytime soon. Okay, more slope-intercept form here, and then in a little bit we'll switch to either using intercepts or solving for y, depending on what the equation looks like. So this is a +2 for our y-intercept, and our slope is -1/3. So we either need to put the negative on top or on bottom, but not both. So I can go down 1 and right 3, or I can go up 1 and left 3, and see how this makes a negative slope, because negative slopes are all down and to the right. Super curious if you guys can just heard my stomach growling. That's good times. Y equals -4x minus 9. We need this to be a fraction, so we'll put over 1. I'm going to start at -9, which is way down here. If I try to go down 4 and over 1, then I don't actually have room on the graph to do that. So I actually want to switch and think of the negative as being on the bottom instead of the top. Just like how we had this or this, we can also switch it on 10. So that means I'm going to go up 4 and then left 1, and I can do that again. And here's my line. It is an, well, let's pretend that didn't happen. It is a negative slope, and it's steep. Having a slope that isn't a fraction, so a slope that's between -1 and 1 is going to be a gradual slope, a slope that we might see ramps have. But if it's bigger than 1 or more negative than -1, we're going to see much steeper slopes. Okay, so that's a way you can check to hopefully check to see if you've drawn the slope correctly. Now we're going to solve for y. Actually, this one would be a really good one to do intercepts on, because if I cover up 5y and I solve 2x equals 10, I would divide both sides by 2, and I would get x equals 5. And then I will uncover the y and cover up the 2x instead. If I was doing this on a piece of paper, I'd just cover up with my pencil or with my finger or with my brain, actually, instead of marking it out. But, whatever you got to do. Y equals 2. So I'm going to put a dot at 5 on the x-axis and at 2 on the y-axis. And then I am going to go like this. Since we didn't get it in slope-intercept form, it's a little bit trickier to check based on what the slope is. We didn't find the slope. But you can, check to make sure that you divided correctly. And We could solve it for y to try to double check, and that would be an option. But yeah, we're going to do 12. We're going to solve for y. So every time we solve for y, we start by moving the x. So since this is a positive 4x, we're going to subtract it to the other side. When we subtract in solving an equation, we are only subtracting one time on each side. We're basically saying, like, this is our total, and I'm going to subtract 4x from that total. Well, because 4x can subtract from 4x, that's why we choose to put it here and mark those out. You cannot subtract 4x from 9, so those just go next to each other, and we often put the x term first because it makes it look more like slope-intercept form. The negative 3y drops down. When we divide by this negative 3, we have to divide everything by negative 3, and that gives us y equals positive 4/3 x minus 3. We could have done this with intercepts. It just is that one of the two intercepts would have been a fraction or decimal. Not even a terrible one, but, you know, just one. That's all. Because if you look, like when I draw the line between these 2 points, it goes through the x-axis at 2 point something, or 2 and some fractions. So there we go. That has been our test review. If you can do everything on here without using notes or a friend, then you should be ready for the test. So thanks for watching.